For years, Britney Spears has been living under a legal conservatorship with her every move being controlled. And until the Free Britney movement took off in 2018, nobody could see what was going on.
It just feels like you can't ask Britney. This appears to be the only thing the only place where she's speaking.
Now, a new documentary has revealed secrets about Britney's past and present, including her relationship with Justin Timberlake. Justin spoke up, but that only made things worse.
This apology from Justin Timberlake is too little, too late. Both women have been scarred for life by events he used to further his career.
And for the first time, Britney herself appeared to address the shocking documentary. We have the full kettle, and it's about to spill. Before I get into the story, I just want to put out a disclaimer. Please do not send any hate to Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, Kevin Federline, or anyone else mentioned in this story. This video is simply meant to report on the news. Since 2008, Britney Spears has been embroiled in a legal conservatorship over her finances and her person. Essentially, she is legally unable to make decisions over her professional and private life. In recent years, fans and the public in general have raised concerns over the way Britney has been treated within the conservatorship and questioned why it remains in place over 10 years later. As a result, the Free Britney movement was born, and a renewed interest was sparked in Britney's life and career. For more information on the Free Britney movement and Britney's conservatorship, our previous series on Britney will be linked in the description box below. On February 5th, the New York Times released a documentary on Britney Spears' life, career, and conservatorship titled Framing Britney Spears. The documentary chronicles Britney's meteoric rise to fame, her public downfall, and the conservatorship she's locked in. Britney grew up in Kentwood, Louisiana, a small town in the heart of the Bible Belt, a region in the southern United States that is typically socially conservative. She sang in her church choir, and from an early age, her talent was clear to anyone in Kentwood. Britney's parents, Jamie and Lynn, wrote to Nancy Carson, a children's talent agent, unsure of what to do with a child with that kind of talent. They asked Nancy for help, and Nancy said she wanted to meet Britney. Nancy described Lynn as being sweet and proud of her daughter, and said Jamie was also proud of her, but was more concerned about the financial part of Britney's career. Lynn and Britney agreed to go to New York City to work on honing Britney's talent through voice lessons, acting lessons, dancing lessons, and auditions. Around this time, Nancy described Britney as a funny, sweet, wonderful little girl. Nancy said Jamie occasionally visited his wife and daughter in New York. He wanted to make sure the money they were spending on Britney's training in New York was worthwhile, since the working-class family was not making much money. The training led to an audition with the all-new Mickey Mouse Club. She was cast, and Nancy said she loved her time on the show. When it ended, Britney went back to Louisiana and lived life as a normal high schooler. Nancy said she started looking for auditions, but it would have been too financially difficult to go back and forth between New York and Kentwood. However, Britney expressed an interest in being a singer and made a demo tape. In 1997, Britney signed a record deal with Jive Records. Lynn asked Felicia Culotta, an old family friend who was living in New York, if she would be able to travel with Britney as her chaperone, since Lynn had to look after Britney's younger sister, Jamie Lynn. Kim Kyman, Jive's senior director of marketing at the time, said she was impressed with Britney's professionalism, saying she took her career seriously. I thought, this is the style. This is a girl that's coming from strength, your friend that you kind of idolize a little bit, but that, at the end of the day, has the same kind of hopes and dreams that you do. At this point in the documentary, the differences between Britney's father and mother become more clear. Jamie Spears wasn't around much when Britney was growing up. He struggled with alcohol and went to rehab. He also struggled financially and bounced between jobs, some of which included being a construction worker and a cook. He tried to open a gym business, but that also didn't work out. He eventually filed for bankruptcy. Meanwhile, Lynn Spears constantly supported her daughter and would do whatever it took for Britney to be a star and for the family to succeed. When asked about Britney's parents' role in her success, Kim Kyman praised Lynn, but had little to say about Jamie. I never talked to her father. The only thing Jamie ever said to me was, "My daughter's going to be so rich, she's going to buy me a boat." That's all I'm going to say about Jamie. In 1998, Britney released her first single, Baby One More Time. The song and the music video were both in nature, but Wesley Morris, the critic at large for the New York Times, explained the appeal. You're seeing a person who reminds you in some ways of you. It isn't the sex part that seems cool, it's the control and command over herself and her space that seems cool. Kim Kyman added, she just captured that dichotomy so well of what a teenage girl is. Teenage girls want to be adult women, but they also are kids. Despite her launch into stardom, Britney still remained a small-town girl. Felicia recalled that one of the first things Britney did once she started getting popular was drive around Kentwood and give $100 bills to people around town. However, throughout her rise to fame, there seemed to be a focus on her sexuality in a way that wasn't as prominent for pop stars that came before her. The documentary showed several moments from the late 90s and early 2000s where interviewers repeatedly bring up her body and the way she dressed, saying she didn't appear to be innocent. Hailey Hill, a former fashion director for Teen People and Britney's former stylist, said, I worked with all the boy bands, all of them. Not one of the boys was ever under any scrutiny. Wesley Morris explained that Britney's arrival in pop culture came in the midst of the scandal between President Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky that dominated the American news cycle. And it's this really charged moment in the country where we're talking about in a way that we had never been talking about or hadn't been for a long time. One interesting thing to note about this point in Britney's career is how she seemed to maintain some control over her career and image. I know all the ins and outs of what I'm doing. I know about all the contracts and deals I'm about to do. I'm not just some girl listening to my manager. Kevin Toncherowan, Britney's former tour director and backup dancer, said she was in control. That idea that Britney is the puppet who just gets moved around and told what to do is incorrect, probably inaccurate. We would present a lot of ideas. She would have to like them and she would have to approve them. And Britney herself said, well, that's why I am where I am today, because I do have control, you know? And you just control what you do, you know? You have to. Otherwise, you get sucked in by people that are not necessary. In 1999, Britney began dating Justin Timberlake, her former co-star on the all-new Mickey Mouse Club. At the time, both of their pop careers were skyrocketing, and their fans, and the general public, were obsessed with their relationship. The media in particular was interested in anything they could learn about them and their relationship, including their history. At one point, Britney was asked if she was a virgin. This was her answer: yes, I am a virgin, and I definitely want to try and have sex till I'm married. I just want to wait for that special someone. Then, in 2002, Britney and Justin broke up, and the way both stars were viewed post-breakup was drastically different. Magazine covers at the time implied that Britney was to blame for the end of the relationship. Justin quickly took control of the narrative and implied in interviews and his music that Britney cheated on him. The most prominent example of this happening is the music video for his hit single, Cry Me a River. The song's lyrics are about a broken-hearted man trying to move on from his ex-girlfriend who cheated on him. At the time of the song's release, Justin didn't say if the song was about his breakup with Britney, but in 2011, Justin and producer Timbaland confirmed the song was inspired by her. According to Timbaland, Justin had seen Britney at a concert, and Britney had spoken about him during the show, which upset him. Justin said, I was on a phone call that was not the most enjoyable phone call. I walked into the studio and he, Timbaland, could tell I was visibly angry. Timbaland recalled, I was like, man, don't worry about it. And he was like, I can't believe she did that to me. And he was like, you were my sun, you were my earth. In the music video, Justin is shown breaking into the home of his ex-girlfriend, who bore a striking resemblance to Britney, and filming himself and another woman engaging in intimate activity. After the other woman leaves, Justin waits for his ex to return. He follows her around her home and hides in a closet as she showers. He leaves the closet and gets closer to her, touching the shower glass. His ex senses someone else is in the home and turns around, but Justin's gone. The video ends with Justin's ex going into her bedroom, where the video Justin made with the other woman plays on the TV. Around this time, Justin made multiple media appearances promoting his new album, and also answered intimate questions about his relationship with Britney. In one radio interview, Justin was asked if he slept with Britney. Did you Britney Spears? Yes or no? Aw, man. Come on, man. Okay, I did it. Wesley Morris explained the misogyny that allowed Justin to succeed while Britney was vilified. And when it's time for people to come in a misogynistic culture for a woman, there's a whole apparatus ready to do it. He also summarized how Britney was treated. The way that people treated her, to be very high school about it, was like she was the school. And in a primetime interview with ABC's Diane Sawyer, one of Sawyer's questions focused on the breakup and Britney's role in it. He's going on television and pretty much said, "You broke his heart. You did something that caused him so much pain, so much suffering. What did you do?" The focus seemed to mostly be on what she did to end the relationship instead of what Justin did, or if Justin's version was correct to begin with. There was also an increased amount of scrutiny on her being a bad role model to American kids because of her perceived sexual image. That same interview with Diane Sawyer showed a clip from the wife of the governor of Maryland berating Britney. Really, if I had an opportunity to Britney Spears, I think I would. After Britney watched the clip, she was visibly uncomfortable. "Oh, that's horrible. That's really bad. But that's really sad that she said that. Ew. I'm not here to, babysit her kids." When she was later asked about her tough year, she struggled to get through her answer and began to cry before asking to take a break. Haley Hill pointed out how Britney struggled with handling the pressure. There's just that invisible line that seemed to exist then that nobody knew how to handle. Then, in 2004, Britney began dating Kevin Federline, a backup dancer, and the media attention on her reached new heights, partially because Kevin began his relationship with Britney while his ex-fiancée was pregnant with their second child. Britton Stone was the photography director for the magazine Us Weekly at the time. When he had a substantial budget, he said the magazine would spend about $140,000 a week on images. Over a year, Us Weekly could spend around $7 to $8 million. Because of the high prices magazines and tabloids were willing to pay for images, many photographers started taking paparazzi photos of celebrities. Around this time, photos of Britney could get up to $1 million each. Daniel Ramos was a celebrity videographer who would often cover Britney. He said that at the beginning, Britney seemed to enjoy the paparazzi because she would be friendly towards them. It was like she needed us and we needed her. We both needed each other. Britton said there was always a higher demand for unposed, candid photos. When the photography team at Us Weekly got more unposed photos, sales went up. Sometimes their personal life becomes bigger than their work. Once Britney had her first child with Kevin, media attention exploded, and almost immediately, the tabloids pushed the idea that Britney was an unfit mother. In June 2006, Britney appeared on Dateline, where she's interviewed by Matt Lauer about the dangers of the tabloid press. Regarding the infamous photos of her driving with her baby on her lap, Britney said she was at Starbucks and saw several photographers crowding her. She said she was scared and wanted to get out of the situation, especially since her baby was upset. "And I just feel like they're taking cheap shots." She also explained that her father, Jamie, used to drive with her in his lap when she was a child. During this time, Britney had her two kids virtually back-to-back. They were born just over a year apart. There was also speculation about marital problems between Britney and Kevin. As well, in Britney's mother Lynn's book, she said Britney was suffering from postpartum depression at the time. A few weeks after Britney gave birth to her second son, she filed for divorce from Kevin. She filed for sole custody of their kids, and the next day, Kevin also filed for sole custody. Around this time, Britney was also seen out partying more with other young celebrities like Paris Hilton and Lindsay Lohan. Joe Coscarelli, a pop music reporter, said Britney began to lose interest in the carefully managed image she had for years, while, at the same time, tabloid culture is reaching the height of its popularity. Britton Stone said the public was fascinated by Britney's life unraveling and explained the appeal behind the candid celebrity images. It was to enjoy their lives in a somewhat aspirational or relatable way. The documentary showed several clips of Britney being chased by the paparazzi and appearing to be visibly uncomfortable by their presence. In the Matt Lauer interview, he asked Britney what she thinks will get the paparazzi to leave her alone. Britney says she doesn't know and breaks down in tears. This is also when Britney infamously shaved her head. She had asked for her head to be shaved, but when the hairdresser refused, she grabbed the clippers and shaved her head herself. One of the salon workers said, and she said, "I don't want anyone touching me. I'm tired of everybody touching me." At the same time, the media joked about the incident and characterized her as being crazy. Wesley Morris explained, "And so she's saying essentially with no hair, I quit. That person is gone and you have destroyed her." The idea that people could look at that and only see a crazy person, that just tells me that what a vulturous society she was working with. Before we go any further, it's important to note that we won't be going in depth on Britney's public breakdown, her conservatorship, or the Free Britney movement, as we've already covered those topics extensively in our previous series. However, we will be covering new insights and revelations that were discussed in the documentary. In February 2007, Britney and Kevin are in a heated custody battle for their 2 children. On February 21st, Daniel Ramos got a call from a photographer friend who told him to come to Kevin Federline's home where Britney was asking to see her kids. Kevin said no. Daniel and his friend followed Britney and her cousin Allie to a gas station. He filmed Britney through the windshield while his friend was taking pictures, and at one point, he asked her how she was doing and said he was concerned about her. They went back to Kevin's house. Britney buzzed the gate and Kevin wouldn't open the gate for her, which made her upset. They then went to a Jiffy Lube store. Daniel went up to Britney's window and said he was going to ask her a couple of questions and then he would leave her alone. Allie came up to Daniel and his friend and told them to stop. Britney then grabbed the umbrella, came after Daniel, and started beating the side of his truck. She told Daniel to go f*** himself and stormed off. The pictures of Britney with the umbrella later became infamous. Daniel said, "That night was not a good night for her, and it was not a good night for us. But it was a good night for us, because it was a money shot." When he was asked if he thought the paparazzi negatively affected Britney, Daniel said, "Working on her for so many years, she never gave a clue or information to us that I don't appreciate you guys, leave me the F alone." What about when she said, "Leave me alone"? There were times when she was like, "Can you leave me alone for the day?" But it wasn't like, "Leave me alone forever." However, Daniel also said he views the Britney coverage differently now. You don't really see what the celebrity is going through. In a later interview, Lynn Spears responded to claims that Britney blamed her mother for her breakdown. "We were just trying to do what we could do at that moment, at that time. We had no control over anything that was happening." Things seemed to get worse for Britney in October 2007. She lost physical custody of her 2 children and is only given visitation rights. She fired her longtime manager and was desperately seeking friendship. This is when Sam Lutfi entered the picture as her boyfriend/pseudo-manager/advisor. He's also someone who is known for attaching himself to celebrities when they're at vulnerable points, like Amanda Bynes and Courtney Love. Britney's parents saw Sam as the person responsible for much of her downfall. Throughout this time, Britney is constantly mocked in the media. One round of the game show Family Feud was focused on making fun of Britney's struggles and public downfall. In January 2008, Britney loses her visitation rights and is taken back to the hospital where she is placed in the 5150 hold. This is when her father, Jamie, seemed to re-enter her life and file for a temporary conservatorship. Liz Day, senior editor for the New York Times, explained conservatorships are mainly designed for elderly people or people who cannot take care of themselves or control their finances. But there's speculation that she may be dealing with mental illness issues or drug abuse issues, or otherwise would benefit from this layer of protection, and it's sort of surprising in that Jamie wasn't a huge figure in her life before this. Vivian Lee Thoreen is a lawyer who was involved in the first few months of the conservatorship proceedings as an attorney of record. Her client was Jamie Spears. She said she couldn't go into specifics, but did give a hypothetical situation. Having a conservator of the estate appointed for someone is that they are substantially unable to manage their financial affairs, or they are susceptible to undue influence or fraud. It's more than just, "I can't balance my checkbook." It's, "I could be duped into giving away my money." Shortly after speaking to the documentary production, Vivian rejoined Jamie Spears' legal team. Around this time, Britney's parents were concerned about the influence Sam Lutfi had over Britney. They filed for a restraining order against him, alleging Sam had taken control of Britney's life, home, and finances. They also claimed he had been her. Sam denied these claims. The court granted the restraining order. However, Sam never seemed to leave the picture. He later sued the family and has popped up in restraining orders as recently as 2019. One day after Britney was hospitalized, Britney was granted a temporary conservatorship. Her father was the conservator of her person, and attorney Andrew Wallet was the conservator of her estate. Through her family law attorneys, Britney contacted Adam Streisand, a trial lawyer who specialized in conservatorships and estates. Adam met with Britney at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and he had several questions for her, primarily if she had the mental capacity to hire him and take his advice. So the first thing is Britney was able to make the judgment, hey, I get what's going on. I get that I'm not going to be able to resist this conservatorship or avoid this conservatorship, right? So that's a pretty sound judgment. The second thing was, she said, I don't want my father to be the conservator. That was her one request. She wanted a professional, somebody independent. Adam said Britney did not want her father making decisions about her medical care and treatment or her finances. When Adam went to court on Britney's behalf, he said the judge told him they had a medical report Adam had not seen, and the judge refused to show it to Adam. The judge allegedly said the medical report showed Britney was not capable of retaining and directing counsel on her own, and would not allow Adam to represent her. Adam said, when the judge told me, Mr. Streisand, I'm not going to let you represent her, I'm going to appoint somebody, I felt that was not the right decision by the judge. I felt that based on my interactions with Britney, that she was capable of retaining me and directing me, and that the judge should have allowed that to happen. Adam said he still didn't know what the medical report said, but he had to respect that and the judge's decision. Around this time, there was also speculation that Britney accepted the conservatorship so she could see her kids. A few weeks after the conservatorship is established, some visitation rights are restored. Vivian explained how a conservatee would go about getting a conservatorship terminated. If there is a conservatorship proceeding and the proposed conservatee at some point consents, the conservatee can't wake up one morning and say, I don't need this, I don't want it, make it go away. In the first year of the conservatorship, Britney filmed a documentary with MTV, which gave the public a glimpse of her new life. This is also the only opportunity for Britney to share her feelings about the conservatorship. If I wasn't under the restraints that I'm under right now, with all the lawyers and doctors and people analyzing me every day and all that kind of stuff, if that wasn't there, I'd feel so liberated and feel like myself. When I tell them the way I feel, it's like they hear me, but they're really not listening. They're hearing what they want to hear. They're not really listening to what I'm telling them. That's bad, and I'm sad. Within 2 months of the conservatorship being established, Britney went back to work. She guest starred on How I Met Your Mother, and by the end of 2008, she had released an album and was preparing to go on tour. By 2009, Britney's life seemed to be back on track, and the media credited the conservatorship with getting Britney on the right path. Felicia Culotta said her role with Britney changed once the conservatorship was established. She was no longer Britney's assistant, and instead was giving backstage tours. She said there was different business management that involved Britney Spears, and the touring company hired her, not Britney's company. Felicia said, I just don't know that they knew her well enough to realize her capabilities in making the decisions. For the next few years, Britney is incredibly busy, with several performances, albums, and appearances. She also had a hugely successful Las Vegas residency, where she was speculated to be earning almost $1 million per week. Jamie received court approval to receive 1.5% of the gross revenues related to performances and merchandise related to the residency. Dave Holmes, a former MTV VJ, pointed out, anytime there's that amount of money to be made, you have to question the motives of everyone close to that person, especially if they're putting her in a position where she cannot make decisions without checking with somebody. With the rise of Instagram, many fans were fascinated by Britney's account, which often posted cryptic and somewhat strange messages. Some people saw these posts as coded messages from Britney speaking about the conservatorship. When asked about the account, Dave Holmes said people will bring their own interpretations to what they see on her Instagram. If you think that Britney is calling out for help, you'll find a reason in those videos that's proof that she's calling out for help. It's impossible to know her, so we never knew her. We know her even less now. She is kind of unknowable. Things started to get a little fishy in October 2018. The hosts of the podcast, Britney's Gram, noticed Andrew Wallet was petitioning the court for a raise. The court documents said the conservatorship should be viewed as a hybrid business model, which didn't make sense because if the conservatee is able to produce large amounts of money like Britney was, why was she still under a conservatorship? Then, on October 18th, Britney was set to announce a new residency. She was supposed to perform and do an interview in a large live-streamed event, but when she appeared on stage, she simply walked off stage and went into a limousine. 11 weeks later, she canceled the residency, citing her father's recent health problems. She then disappeared off Instagram and Andrew Wallet quit, despite recently asking for a raise. When Britney returned to Instagram, her caption had a smiley face instead of an emoji, which she normally uses. Britney voluntarily checked into a mental health facility. Combined with the other strange events, the podcast host suspected Britney may have been forced to go into the facility. Then, an anonymous person who claimed they worked with the conservatorship left a message on the podcast's voicemail service. I used to be a paralegal for an attorney that works with Britney's conservatorship. Britney has been in the mental health facility since mid-January. I haven't had any contact with her, but from what I understand, this was not a decision she made. The New York Times has not verified the source's claims. Britney's Graham released an emergency episode about the voicemail and launched the Free Britney movement. Britney's manager, Larry Rudolph, denied the claims to the Washington Post and said the conservatorship had no legal right to force treatment. The podcast went viral and several fans and celebrities started actively campaigning to free Britney from her conservatorship. Jamie Spears spoke to Page Six and called the Free Britney movement a theory. Around this time, things seemed to be crumbling behind the scenes. The media reported Britney and her father were no longer on good terms, and Kevin Federline took out a restraining order against Jamie, claiming Jamie had a physical altercation with one of Britney's sons. On September 19, 2019, Jamie stepped down as the conservator of Britney's person, citing health reasons. He remained as the conservator of her person. Around this time, Lynn Spears also requested to be involved in Britney's medical decisions. Then, in August 2020, Britney indicated via court documents that she wanted changes to the conservatorship. One major change was she wanted a bank to oversee her estate instead of her father. She also appeared to acknowledge the Free Britney movement. At this point in her life, Britney welcomes and appreciates the informed support of her many fans. Britney herself is vehemently opposed to this effort by her father to keep her legal struggle hidden away in the closet as a family secret. In this case, it is not an exaggeration to say that the whole world is watching. And in the court hearing on November 10th, Britney's choice to be the conservator of her estate, Bessemer Trust, was named as co-conservator of her estate. However, Jamie was still in charge of her money. Adam Streisand addressed a confusing point in the conservatorship case. If she's functioning enough to say, hey, I don't want my father to be a conservator, I'm not going to perform if he's the conservator, maybe she doesn't need a conservatorship. But the problem is, we don't know what we don't know. At the end of the documentary, Felicia Culotta said, I know at some point she will tell her story. I know she will. And I'm so grateful for when that point comes, that she's able to sit down and, everything will fall into place. People had strong reactions to the documentary. Many people were horrified by how Britney was treated by the media. I now understand the infamous 2007 Britney moment, and would totally beat the out of that paparazzi car window too. Framing Britney Spears is doing a great job at showing us what she was really going through. That night was not a good night for her. It was a good night for us because it was a money shot. I'm getting heated. How is it legal for old men to ask a teenager about her breasts on national television? Watching this Britney Spears doc, can you imagine an interviewer asking a woman if she's a virgin today? Disgusting. Every Britney interviewer from the old clips and Framing Britney Spears that is still alive owes Britney a public apology. You can go first, Diane Sawyer. Ed McMahon asking tiny little Britney Spears if she has a boyfriend is repulsive in so many ways. She says no because they're mean, and then he says, what about me? Barf. The way so many people talk to girls is just wrong. Literal laws were changed because of how the press hounded Britney. I really don't know of a single other celebrity who was hunted the way Britney was, and as a woman at such a young age. Honestly, who thought this was okay?
The top 7 answers are on the board. Name something Britney Spears has lost in the past year.
Some people were frustrated by the conservatorship and her father's rule. Yo, Britney Spears is really actually being held hostage. I thought the internet was just being dramatic. Britney was able to perform several shows a day during her residency, handle promo on all the late night shows, make a new album, and shoot new music videos, but the courts didn't think she could handle making day-to-day decisions? My daughter is gonna be so rich, she's gonna buy me a boat. So Jamie Spears said this after being absent from his daughter's life, and this is the person who is in charge of her finances. And several people were angry with how the world and culture as a whole treated Britney. Just saw someone say that the Framing Britney Spears documentary almost seemed like it had been made about someone who had died, but in fact, it was made about someone who hasn't even had the opportunity yet to just live. And that really hit my heart. The way the media treated Britney from the beginning of her career was revolting. She was a kid. They her and then vilified her at the same time. I can't stop thinking about Framing Britney, which I saw last night and revealed as much of Britney Spears' brilliance and bravery as it did the consequences our gross culture of misogyny. Must watch and free Britney. The world owes Britney Spears an apology. Raise your hand if you gained more respect for Britney Spears while watching the Framing Britney Spears documentary. Celebrities spoke out in support of Britney. Charlie Puth. Britney Spears' music was my first exposure to pop music. Her impact is profound, and it always baffled me as to why people were so brutal to her when she was down. It's great the world is more sensitive to mental health now, but upsetting it took this long in Britney's case. Cher. She worked hard, was the golden goose, made lots of money, got sick, now she's the cash cow. Does anyone who's making money off her being sick want her well? Someone who doesn't want anything from her should look into her doctor and her meds. Is it a duck? Valerie Bertinelli. Framing Britney Spears is a gut punch. So many horrible men leeches in her life. Her father, Justin Timberlake, her father, the Paparazzi, her father, Us Weekly photo director, her father, Kevin Federline, her father, Harvey Levin, her father, Sam Lefty, her father, Haley Williams. The Framing Britney Spears doc, holy no artist today would have to endure the literal torture that media, society, utter misogynist inflicted upon her. The mental health awareness conversation, culturally, could never be where it is without the awful price she has paid. One person who received a lot of backlash was Justin Timberlake, Britney's most prominent ex-boyfriend. Many people were upset with Justin's actions. Found this pic of Justin Timberlake. Watching this Britney doc, and yes, 2021 in the year we publicly acknowledge that Justin Timberlake launched his career by shaming Britney. He completely capitalized on their private relationship. He made it a point to embarrass her and publicly call her a liar when her life is no one's business. This wasn't one interview and one song. It was a team effort his own mother approved of. Talk about Britney, talk about shed your innocent boy band image, get popular. I'm watching Framing Britney Spears, and I said this 20 years ago, and I'll say it again. Justin Timberlake is trash. Unfortunately, he's a white straight male who will continue to get a hall pass for his bullshit. Many fans also flooded Justin's Instagram posts with comments about the documentary and his role in Britney's public scrutiny. And on February 12th, Justin posted an apology to his Instagram account. I've seen the messages, tags, comments, and concerns, and I want to respond. I am deeply sorry for the times in my life where my actions contributed to the problem, where I spoke out of turn or did not speak up for what was right. I understand that I fell short in these moments and in many others and benefited from a system that condones misogyny and racism. I specifically want to apologize to Britney Spears and Janet Jackson both individually because I care for and respect these women and I know I failed. I also feel compelled to respond in part because everyone involved deserves better and, most importantly, because this is a larger conversation that I wholeheartedly want to be a part of and grow from. The industry is flawed. It sets men, especially white men, up for success. It's designed this way. As a man in a privileged position, I have to be vocal about this. Because of my ignorance, I didn't recognize it for all that it was while it was happening in my own life, but I do not want to ever benefit from others being pulled down again. I have not been perfect in navigating all of this throughout my career. I know this apology is a first step and doesn't absolve the past. I want to take accountability for my own missteps in all of this, as well as be a part of a world that uplifts and supports. I care deeply about the well-being of the people I love and have loved. I can do better, and I will do better. There were also concerns about Britney not receiving interview requests to appear in the documentary, as seen on a title card at the end of the film. The director, Samantha Stark, has opened up about the process behind getting in touch with Britney, her family, and her team. Stark told Entertainment Tonight the production reached out to Britney for an interview, but her management team declined, which was an ethical issue the production tried to manage while making the film. Stark said, "Most of the time, as the New York Times, if I want to interview somebody who's famous, I would call up their publicist and say, can you send this request to this person? A lot of times, the person will review it and give it back to the publicist. But we're unclear whether that happened. We went through those usual places, and then we also went through people who know her or know people who know her to get requests in. So we asked in several different ways. but it is still unclear if she definitely got them. She also explained the difficulties around getting in touch with Britney. Since Britney has such a tight circle around her, in part because of the conservatorship, or it's allowed to be that way because of the conservatorship, journalists haven't really been able to interview her freely. We, as the New York Times, haven't interviewed her because we want to be able to do it freely with no one trying to adjust what she says or anything. It just feels like you can't ask Britney. Stark said the production contacted several members of Britney's family and team, including her ex-husband Kevin Federline, and all declined to participate. Aside from the issues of sealed court documents and doctors and lawyers protecting their clients, there's also the issue created by non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs. While Stark said she believes Federline's refusal stemmed from his desire to protect his kids' privacy, she also believed NDAs blocked certain people from speaking to the production. So many people around Britney have NDAs, and they would have to pay a lot of money if they said anything. People were scared. Jamie's team has sued some fans before, and there's a legal threat that way. I mean, we are the New York Times, so we weren't worried. We wanted to go after everybody, but we've gotten some calls from some lawyers, sure. However, Stark told Variety there could be another legitimate reason why people wouldn't talk to them. A legitimate reason that she and her family wouldn't speak to any media outlet right now is that they're in the middle of what looks to be gearing up to be a court battle, and it's standard for lawyers to advise their clients not to speak to the media when they're in the middle of that. She also gave some insight as to why Britney rarely does interviews. If you've done any interview with her for the past 5 to 10 years, it was under careful watch from her handlers. We've heard from a lot of people in newsrooms that if you want to interview Britney, her team has final cut over what's in the piece. A lot of news outlets wouldn't agree to that ethically, so you can't have a journalist ask her how she's feeling. The only thing you can see is her Instagram. Although, she said that while it's impossible to know how much control Britney has over her social media, it may be the only place where her fans can hear from her. And on February 9th, Britney made an Instagram post that appeared to reference the documentary. She posted a video of her performing Toxic in 2018 and wrote, "I'll always love being on stage, but I'm taking the time to learn and be a normal person. I love simply enjoying the basics of everyday life. Each person has their story and their take on other people's stories. We all have so many different bright, beautiful lives. Remember, no matter what we think we know about a person's life, it is nothing compared to the actual person living behind the lens." In addition to the public response about Britney's situation, there's been a renewed interest in how young female celebrities were treated by the media in the 2000s and early 2010s. While criticizing and hounding famous women is not limited to the 2000s, there was more of a fixation on celebrity news in mainstream outlets, and therefore an increased scrutiny on stars, particularly ones that were young and female. One figure that repeatedly comes up is former late-night host and comedian David Letterman. Several of his interviews with female stars often appeared to show the female celebrity being visibly uncomfortable with his line of questioning. In 2004, Janet Jackson appeared on his show, and Letterman repeatedly asked her about her infamous Super Bowl performance that took place a month prior, where Justin Timberlake ripped off a piece of her clothing and inadvertently revealed her right breast. Janet said she didn't want to discuss the incident, but Letterman continued to ask her questions about what happened. Also in the early 2000s, Jessica Alba was promoting her movie Honey, and Letterman repeatedly pressed her on a revealing outfit she had to wear in the film, despite Jessica appearing uncomfortable. In 2007, Paris Hilton appeared on Letterman's show. She was supposed to be promoting her new perfume, but Letterman repeatedly asked her about her recent 45-day stint in jail. Despite Paris only giving short or one-word answers, Letterman continued to ask her questions about jail until Paris was near tears. Recently, Paris revealed on her podcast that Letterman agreed to not ask her about her jail sentence, and that was the only reason she agreed to do the interview. She said, "That was off limits and he would not discuss it, and we would only be there to promote the perfume and my other business ventures. I felt like it was a safe place because I'd been going on Letterman for so many years. He'd always have fun with me and joke around, but I thought he would keep his word on this, and I was wrong. I was just getting so uncomfortable and I was so upset. Just being up there, it was like he was purposefully trying to humiliate me. And during commercial breaks, I'd look at him like, please stop doing this. You promised me you wouldn't talk about this. And that's the only reason I agreed to come on the show. It was just very cruel and very mean. And after it ended, I looked at him and I said, I'm never coming on the show again. You've crossed the line. She said Letterman sent her a case of wine and apologized. Finally, in 2013, Letterman interviewed Lindsay Lohan, who was there to promote her new film Scary Movie 5. However, Letterman only spent about 3 minutes talking about the movie, and instead repeatedly asked her questions about shoplifting, her substance abuse issues, and her upcoming treatment in rehab. Like the other woman I've discussed, Lindsay handled the interview with grace, but she appeared visibly uncomfortable at several points. And this was only one example of Lindsay receiving questionable media treatment. Shortly after Lindsay's 18th birthday, Rolling Stone contributing editor Mark Benelli interviewed her for a profile in the magazine's Hot List issue. Here were the opening sentences of his article. Lindsay Lohan has been 18 for just under a week when she tells me her breasts are real. I did not ask, gentlemen never do, though my reporting, discreet visual fact-checking, a goodbye hug, seems to confirm her statement. Lohan fields queries about her breasts in most interviews, which is probably why she decided to preemptively address the issue. In an email to the Washington Post, Benelli said that while he received no pushback on that article at the time, and he thought the offending sentences were funny and edgy at the time, he no longer agrees with what he wrote. Reading the story today makes me cringe, and I deeply regret writing it and any other ways in which I participated in the rampant misogyny of the media landscape at the time. So, why were young female stars treated this way in the 2000s? While there's no definitive answer, there were a few contributing factors that could have led to that moment in pop culture. Vanessa Grigoriadis, a contributing editor at Rolling Stone during the 2000s, said people were fixated on raunch at the time. What is raunch culture and why is it taking over America? Why are people interested in Jenny McCarthy and Jessica Simpson and Jenna Jameson and Anna Nicole Smith? I think everybody thought this was a real moment in American pop culture history where we had reached the bottom. Jessica M. Goldstein, a contributing writer to the Washington Post, also raised an interesting point about media culture in the 2000s. This period was the final stretch of print media's monopoly on celebrity content acquisition and distribution. Blogs and social media were coming to strip them of much of their influence and audience, and it was the last moment when the celebrities needed magazines even more than magazines needed celebrities, which meant the power dynamic was tilted away from the mostly young, often female fame seekers toward the men atop the mastheads. As well, men's magazines rose in popularity around this time. Men's magazines usually relied on male cover stars, with only an occasional female celebrity or model in the mix. In a deviation from the norm, Ed Needham's FHM, for him monthly, put women on the cover. The only other US men's magazine that had already cracked and caved to this formula was Maxim. Covers with women far outsold covers of men, and famous women sold more than anonymous models. However, this conversation can get tricky when we address the autonomy of the women involved. As Jessica M. Goldstein pointed out, two efforts collide: a push to respect the vision and autonomy of the young women who, by some accounts, steered their own careers even over the objections of male handlers, contrasted with a post-Me Too understanding of how complicated and sometimes impossible it is for a young woman to consent in a situation in which she has limited power or control. So, while the media landscape of 20 years ago should be judged for its hyperfixation on women's sexuality, Vanessa Grigoriadis says the criticism should also consider the intentions of the women involved. I also don't think we should strip all the agency away from women who were also having a good time in a lot of ways. Some of them were being abused. I don't want to say that they weren't, but there were also some people who were having a lot of fun. To end this on a bit of a lighter note, it's worth noting that not all prominent media figures were mistreating young female celebrities. In a monologue that has since gone viral after the release of Framing Britney Spears, former late-night host Craig Ferguson defended Britney Spears and other female celebrities who were being mocked in the media. The whole monologue, which was done shortly after Britney shaved her head, is worth a watch, but here is a particularly relevant clip.
I'm starting to feel uncomfortable about making fun of these people, and for me comedy should have a certain amount of joy in it. It should be about us attacking the powerful people, attacking the politicians and the Trumps and the blowhards and going after them. We should be attacking the vulnerable people. And I think, this is totally a mea culpa, this is just for me. I think my aim's been off a bit recently. I want to change it a bit. So tonight, no Britney Spears jokes.
So, what's the status of Britney's case now? As of the posting of this video, several people have spoken out about the situation. Shortly after the documentary was released, Britney's boyfriend, Sam Asghari, made a statement on his Instagram story. Now, it's important for people to understand that have zero respect for someone trying to control our relationship and constantly throwing obstacles our way. In my opinion, Jamie is a total dick. Won't be going into details because I've always respected our privacy, but at the same time, I didn't come to this country to not be able to express my opinion and freedom. On February 13th, Britney's cousin and former assistant, Allie Sims, gave her first interview in more than a decade to NBC News. Allie said she hadn't spoken to Britney since January 2008, when she claimed Jamie threatened her. She said she was told something would happen to her if she did not stop communicating with Britney. He 100% was threatening me with my life. As well, Jamie Spears' legal team has addressed the documentary and the Free Britney movement. Vivian Lee Thoreen, now part of Jamie's legal team, did several interviews defending the conservatorship and Jamie Spears. She said Jamie's main priority is making sure Britney is safe and not being taken advantage of. In an interview with Good Morning America, Vivian said the narrative is being twisted. I understand that every story wants to have a villain, but people have it so wrong here. This is a story about a fiercely loyal, loving, and dedicated father who rescued his daughter from a life-threatening situation. People were harming her and they were exploiting her. In an interview with CNN, Vivian said Jamie wanted nothing more than to see Britney not need a conservatorship, but the decision was ultimately up to Britney. Whether or not there is an end to the conservatorship really depends on Britney. If she wants to enter conservatorship, she can file a petition to end it. Jamie is not suggesting that he is the perfect dad or that he would receive any Father of the Year award. Like any parent, he doesn't see eye to eye on what Britney may want, but Jamie believes every decision he has made has been in her best interest. Then, in a surprising move, on March 9th, Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz called on the chair of the House Judiciary Committee to hold a hearing on the conservatorship process. In the letter, Gaetz wrote, "In recent years, there has been growing public concern about the use of conservatorships to effectively deprive individuals of personal freedoms at the behest of others through the manipulation of the courts. Given the constitutional freedoms at stake and opaqueness of these arrangements, it is incumbent upon our committee to convene a hearing to examine whether Americans are strapped unjustly in conservatorships." In an interview with Vanity Fair, Gaetz directly addressed Britney's situation. If the conservatorship process can rip the agency from a woman who is in the prime of her life and one of the most powerful pop stars in the world, imagine what it can do to people who are less powerful and have less of a voice. I am concerned about access to due process for wards. Through his lawyers, Jamie Spears again defended his role as a conservator after Gaetz' letter. Vivian Lee Thoreen said, "Anytime Britney wants to end her conservatorship, she can ask her lawyer to file a petition to terminate it. She has always had this right, but in 13 years has never exercised it. Britney knows that her daddy loves her and that he will be there for her whenever and if she needs him, just as he always has been, conservatorship or not." And court documents were recently filed by Britney's legal team where she requested that Jody Montgomery be named the permanent conservator of her person, and that Jamie Spears resign as the conservator of her person. Jamie would still remain co-conservator of her estate with Bessemer Trust. According to TMZ sources, Jamie is fine with the change. As well, Britney's legal team made a point to note, petitioner expressly reserves the right to petition for termination of this conservatorship under Probate Code Section 1861. Nothing in the within petition shall be deemed to constitute a waiver of that right. Then, on March 30th, Britney appeared to address the documentary for the first time on her Instagram account. She posted a video of her dancing to Aerosmith music, and in the caption, she wrote, "My life has always been very speculated, watched, and judged, really my whole life. For my sanity, I need to dance to Steven Tyler every night of my life to feel wild and human and alive. I have been exposed my whole life performing in front of people. It takes a lot of strength to trust the universe with your real vulnerability, because I've always been so judged, insulted, and embarrassed by the media. And I still am till this day. As the world keeps turning and life goes on, we still remain so fragile and sensitive as people. I didn't watch the documentary, but from what I did see of it, I was embarrassed by the light they put me in. I cried for 2 weeks, and well, I still cry sometimes. I do what I can in my own spirituality with myself to try and keep my own joy, love, and happiness. Every day, dancing brings me joy. I'm not here to be perfect. Perfect is boring. I'm here to pass on kindness." However, there were some people who suspected Britney didn't write the caption. This situation is extremely complicated and doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon. Framing Britney Spears re-examined Britney's situation and the Free Britney movement, and provided new insights on her life and career. While the documentary re-evaluated the past with fresh eyes and revealed new information, we still don't know the truth behind Britney's life or conservatorship, which is extremely troubling. The main priority with the conservatorship and the Free Britney movement is Britney's health and well-being, and it's unclear if the conservatorship is really the best thing for her. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, hit the like button. To keep up on all the tea, consider subscribing to the channel.